Hey everybody, Gene Ginsberg here. Very excited to have a special guest on the podcast, Jeff Calederone from Elevated Third Consultancy, digital consultancy. Is that how?
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Do you want to share
Sure.
a little bit about your background and the company?
Yeah, sure. So Elevated Third is a company that I started 15 years ago. We are a digital consultancy, as Gene said. We focus only on B2B companies. So enterprise B2B, we do a lot of SaaS, financial services, and we provide not only the MarTech stack and the website that they need to kind of run their business, but also consulting on account-based marketing and demand gen and general go-to-market strategies.
Excellent. So what kind of companies do you typically work with?
Yeah, so like I said, a lot of SaaS in Denver. We just started working with Exactly. We work with Vertifor. We work with Empower Retirement as well. And so yeah, typically in that $50 million to the $300 million range, and in companies that are really have a growth driver. A lot of private equity as well. So we work with some of the larger private equity firms, and they bring us in to kind of help with digital transformation for the companies that they buy.
Cool. So in terms of the types of things that you do for these companies, you said digital transformation. So what does that look like so specifically?
Sure. So one, the tools that we use are open source, and so primarily Drupal is kind of our CMS digital experience platform of choice. And so there's usually a website build in there somewhere, but more than that, it's evaluating their entire MarTech stack and helping them understand, kind of how to get from point A to point B. So there's a technical component, there's a strategic component. Sometimes there's even a cultural component. If sales and marketing aren't getting along, we have some suggestions and some ways to pilot things so that they start to kind of get aligned and work together.
Okay. So interesting that. So beyond just the website, you're looking at kind of the internal development of the company?
Yeah, and so kind of the whole marketing ecosystem. Okay. And so in B2B, you've got the digital experience platform or CMS, but you also will obviously have a CRM. Most of our clients are on Salesforce, and then you've got marketing automation, Marketo, Pardot, et cetera. And then there's often a decision agent or an intent signaling tool like Demandbase. So clients that can put an audience in Demandbase, and so that anonymous traffic, when they come to their site, can ping Demandbase and say, hey, do we know who these people are? And then a big component of all of those things that we provide is personalization. And so not only landing page personalization like Marketo does with RTP and some of the other competitors, but based on your demand-based audience or based on an email UTM string, Salesforce opportunity category, we can personalize the whole entire site. So changing banners across the site, changing blocks of content, putting in different white papers or other kind of consideration content just based on what we know about those people.
Very cool. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about some of the recent wins that you've had at Elevated Third.
Sure. Well, like I said, Exactly was a great win for us. That's a client that is here in town. They do they're kind of a Salesforce supplement vendor. They help you manage your sales team and make sure that everybody's getting paid correctly in Salesforce. And that was a compete against Adobe, which we often see Adobe. I think we tend to go after business because we're so good at Drupal. We tend to go after business that already is friendly to Drupal, but this was one where they weren't friendly to Drupal at all. They were really sort of set on Adobe, and we were able to come in and show the value of what we provide and also the value of an open source tool versus a proprietary tool like Adobe.
Gotcha. Well, that's amazing. Yeah, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Getting a new client like that.
It's always good.
That's always. I mean, yes, of course, having a business, the name of the game is getting clients, and getting a big client like that is always very extremely positive. So tell us a little bit about your background. So how did you start the company?
Yeah, sure. It's really not very glamorous. I was in healthcare for a little while once I graduated with my philosophy undergrad.
Okay.
And then decided
bucking that racket.
Yeah, right. And then decided I needed to actually make some money. So I went back and got an MBA. And while I was doing my MBA, I got a job at CU Health Sciences Center, Anschutz, doing website management for a grant program. So that's where I learned sort of the technical side of things. Graduated when the .com bust happened, the first kind of NASDAQ bust happened around 2000. So there weren't any jobs. So I got a job at CU in a different department that said they were entrepreneurial and wanted to start a company, but they really didn't. So one day I just decided to start building websites. So I started moonlighting, found a kind of niche within printing services at CU, and 6 months later quit my job and just kept going.
Oh, so pretty much right out of college, right?
No, I was close to 30.
Okay,
so I did
okay,
healthcare for a while, and then I took about 3 years to get my MBA.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So yeah.
Wow. Okay, so started off just doing websites and then rolled into
just
an
like
agency?
$600 websites, whoever would pay, and doing kind of I'm dating myself, but Dreamweaver templates and contribute and really kind of low rent versions of things. And I quickly realized that I was not a very good designer and not a very good programmer, but I knew enough about the business and could sell a little bit and could bring in people that were much better than me at those things.
I remember Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I used to also, I remember I took an HTML class when I was in college.
Yeah.
And Dreamweaver, one of the platforms that we used back then.
I think back then, like, you just had to be slightly better than the clients and kind of know how to get something out the door, which we did and allowed us to stay in business. But then, like I said, like quickly started using a pool of contractors. Judd Mercer, who's our creative director and is also a partner in the business, was our first employee. He was a contractor who was just head and shoulders above all the other contractors, and I couldn't afford him at the time. He had already kind of established himself, and so I gave him what I could as well as part of the company, and he decided to come aboard. So
He's been with you since the beginning?
Almost 14 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you were not very good at design at the beginning. So what are you good at in the business?
What am I good at? I think so. I've been good at sort of figuring out what the next thing is and being good enough at that thing until maybe somebody better comes along. I think I'm still pretty good at business strategy and kind of figuring out how our clients need to go to market. I think that also makes me pretty good at sales, because really in a consultative sale, like really that's the name of the game is figuring out if there is pain and if there's a problem to solve and how you might solve it. What the strategy is, that's kind of how we sell. We're not high pressure and really like if there's no pain, there's no sale. So I think I'm good at those things. And then more recently, I think I've gotten good at coaching people in their roles to be more effective and to sort of scale the company.
So the leadership role. Huh?
Yeah.
The mentor role.
Yeah, that's my seat. So yeah, and I think it was different for me. Like I used to be involved in every sale and the strategy, and really it was probably 3-4 years ago we had a big client that we launched and everyone was congratulating each other, and I was like, that client doesn't even know my name. Because somebody else on the team sold it, the strategy was somebody else. And so that's kind of when my role started to change. It's like, nobody needs me to come in and save the day. They've got it. And so how can I coach and help them grow their careers and serve our clients better?
Is that how the direction you wanted it to go? Like eventually?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was a little bit of an ego blow for me. It's like, oh, they don't need me. Oh.
Well, he's not I know it's like a double-edged sword, right? Like they don't need me, but they don't need me, and you're like, great, I can do other things.
Well, I have a company now.
Yeah.
Like it's not just a job.
It's not just like me designing websites in my basement.
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah. Nobody wants that. So yeah, that's kind of how my role has changed over time, and now with the ABM, the account-based marketing consulting, like that's kind of my baby, and I'm growing that team because it's really somewhat different than what we've been doing previously. We are really good at building and analysis and data and kind of go-to-market strategies within that sort of digital CMS realm, but being a digital consultant where maybe the company already has a CMS and there's none of that business, but they're having trouble getting sales and marketing aligned or having trouble evaluating their go-to-market strategy. So that's what I'm doing for our clients, as well as starting to build a team so that we can have almost like a standalone account-based marketing consultancy, digital marketing consultancy to serve the clients that already trust us because we've built them the MarTech stack that they're using.
Right. So what's in store next for Elevated Third? You mentioned the account-based marketing. Is that really the big project that you're working on?
I think it's continuing to focus on B2B. I think that there's a lot of opportunity in personalization. I think most of our clients, and I think really the market in general, says they want it and they sort of dabble, but nobody is really doing personalization really well. And I think that's because of some of the strategic and technical issues that I was talking about before. So yeah, I think we're going to continue to solve those problems. I'd like to build the consultancy to the point that it's sort of standalone and competes on its own, regardless if somebody wants us for the technical side. So I think that's my next challenge over the next 12 to 18 months is getting 6 to 8 core people that are really the best in town or the best in the world at that type of work. And then I think that starts to feed the other side of the agency. Whereas right now, our consultancy work comes from our clients that have already used us to build the tech stack.
Gotcha. So what are some of the account-based marketing strategies you guys are using?
Sure. Well, as you probably know, like account-based marketing, it really it flips the funnel, and so rather than blasting a white paper to 15,000 people, you recognize the 100 accounts or the 50 accounts or the 5 accounts that you are uniquely qualified to serve, and using personalization, using ad targeting, using targeted sales outreach through your business development reps, you're kind of hitting them all at the same time. And so what we help our clients with, one, is that audience identification. So helping them, and you'd be surprised how many clients, because they're used to sort of a shotgun content strategy, they can't necessarily tell you what are the 50 best clients. Because there are, if you talk, especially if you talk to a salesperson and you say like, well, have you been in that pitch where you just felt like you couldn't lose because every question they asked, you had such a great answer and there was such alignment with their pain and your solution. They can answer that question, but marketers sometimes can't answer that question. So it's getting marketers to think like that, and then using Discover.org or using Demandbase or Built-With are these tools that help us, out of the broad, possibility of all the companies in the country or in the world, how do we narrow? So for us, for example, for just internally, we can narrow based on companies that are already on Drupal. And if they have Drupal and Demandbase, that means that they probably have the budget to go with somebody like us. And the other things in their MarTech stack, we know from experience, lead to certain types of pain, and we can use that pain to really target our outreach. And we're targeting 50 or 150 companies and 7 to 10 people at each company with a very specific message, knowing ahead of time that they probably have some of this pain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just curious what kind of strategies you were using. Because, account-based marketing is very, it can be a very large, platform, right? Because, there's many things you can do that are probably like you can do LinkedIn and you can call people. And so there's so many.
Of the above.
Yeah, all of the above.
But it all drives off of that audience. And that's the thing that sometimes clients forget is, you say like, oh yeah, we're doing account-based marketing. Well, how big is your target company list? Oh, 3,000. It's like, well, you're not doing account-based marketing if you're targeting 3,000 companies. You're not specific enough. How do you get to that center of the bullseye so that you really can talk to people that you're uniquely qualified to serve? And then, you work your way through that, and then you expand out to the next ring of the bullseye, and you keep going, but you're not just blasting everybody with the same message.
Yeah. So personalization, right? Is
personalization
really where things are moving? I feel like. Absolutely. Speaking of which, where things are moving, so what is your prediction for the industry? That could be for your industry. It could be anything related to flying to Mars or self-driving cars or Elon Musk. What do you think is going to be happening in the next 5 to 10 years?
I read the same things that everybody else reads. I think obviously everyone's talking about voice. I don't necessarily see it in B2B anytime soon. I think in the thing. I don't think so. I think that there's some hurdles to overcome in terms of just that longer sales cycle and where does voice play a role in that longer sales cycle. But I could be wrong about that. But what I do think is going to happen is that traditional kind of content inbound strategies are going to get more and more difficult. I think because Gmail, for example, like there's a promotions tab, and all marketing emails go in there. And speaking personally for me, like, there's marketing emails that I used to love to get that I never see anymore because they're in that promotions tab, and it's just the Wild West in there. And so I think it's going to be harder for marketers, B2B marketers, to break through the noise. And I think they're going to have to get innovative and I would argue focused on how do you break through with these very high value targeted customers versus trusting that just awareness across the board is going to get you what you need.
Maybe it's not email, right? Maybe it's other platforms.
Well, I agree. I think that although like sort of the shotgun approach has the same problem across all the other platforms, and so like if you're doing paid search, for example, and you're not targeted, you're paying for the most general term, which is the most expensive term. Sure. And so ABM and long tail and all of those things have that thing in common where you're trying to use technology to really focus your message on the people that are ready to hear it. And if you do that, one, you're going to convert better, and two, it's going to be less expensive because you're not competing with sort of the general broad, marketplace and trying to just be louder than everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems that the really lesson learned here is niching down and really narrowing down your ideal target market, if you will, right?
I think so,
and getting really specific.
And I can really only speak for B2B, but again, like recognizing that you have clients that you are uniquely qualified to serve, that they have firmographic characteristics, they have probably technographic characteristics, they have things that leave a trail, if you will, and if you can kind of follow that trail and group them together and then hit them with the message that from your experience is going to compel them, and just do that in a thoughtful way, in a sort of these short bursts and short cycles, I think that's the most effective. It's been the most effective for us. Like, our clients are seeing success there, and I think that's going to increase because, again, the noise is going to keep getting louder. And so, like, finding a way to break through and to be different and be unique, I think is gonna pay off.
Speaking of unique, are there any campaigns you've done for your company or your clients' companies where that you feel like were really unique?
I think, I'll be honest, like, I think that we are in the clear but not yet clever stage. Okay. And so it's more around targeting with the right message. I think that, again, like, building out this ABM consultancy, like, that's one thing that I think is missing that I'd like to add is that sort of campaign clever focus where you're sort of breaking through with something that is maybe more catchy and sticky, but that's frankly not our strength right now. And what's encouraging to me is, like, it works for us even without that, and I think that'll be a nice little bonus or a nice little turbocharge on top of it when we get clever as well as being clear.
Gotcha. So the next step is getting clever, huh?
Is getting clever.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and it comes from just our DNA is really on the build. And so, like, we haven't until recently really had copywriting resources because the clients sort of handled that. And brand and messaging and all of that is something that either the client outsourced to another agency or they did internal, and we built the engine that sort of drove that stuff. I think that needs to change with the consultancy. Not a whole lot, because I think we're not going to take over brand and we're not going to take over kind of overall messaging, but I think we need to, within this realm, within this sort of ABM outreach realm, be able to come up with a campaign or be clever within the overall brand guidelines that somebody else has determined.
Gotcha. Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I love listening to, account-based marketing strategies. I mean, that's one thing that I'm very passionate about as well, but also just how you guys are, changed over time. And I mean, we've known each other for, like, we were just talking about that before we started recording the podcast. We were known each other for 5 years, and things always evolve and change, but for the better, of course.
They do. Yeah, you keep showing up every day and try to get better. And
chipping away. That's what I always say, just chipping away at it every day. So nice. Great. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. This has been great. I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really glad that you decided to come out here and do the podcast. Thanks so much, Jeff Calederone. I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Calederone from Elevated Third. Yes. And thanks for coming out here, and we really appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thanks, Gene.